Hello everybody, my name is Firo and today we are going to be doing another episode of Draw With Me. In today's episode, my medium of choice will be crayons that I found on the floor of the old spaghetti factory. I will also be using the classic 500 drawing prompts book in order to choose what we will be drawing today. So get out your pencils and pens or join me in this drawing challenge of only using restaurant crayons, and let's begin! So here they are, the two beautiful crayons that are double-sided. I literally found them on the ground. I didn't even get them because I'm too old, so they would never give me crayons at a restaurant. They did give free bread, which I was quite surprised by. No one gives you free bread these days. Let's get a drum roll for the prompt, shall we? Gargoyles! In last week's video, I already decided that I wanted to do a landscape, so that's what I'm going for. This prompt kind of freaked me out at the beginning because I had literally no idea how I was going to incorporate gargoyles into a landscape without simply drawing a building. In the end, it turned out to be not that bad. I just started by drawing a simple gargoyle and testing out the crayons to see kind of what their limits were. Really in this first little bit, I'm more just seeing how the colors are blending together and what colors I should be using for sketching, what colors I should be using for rendering process. I think the biggest challenge with this challenge was the fact that there were only 4 colors and 2 crayons, so I had to be flipping back and forth on the same crayon, which was actually pretty convenient, but it just didn't give me a lot of color in general. I don't work with crayons normally, nor do I ever work with pastels or even charcoal or anything kind of like that. I really don't like the texture of it. It kind of freaks me out. One thing I've been doing recently to improve on my landscapes is just to draw a couple of little ones, because one big landscape piece takes a really long time to fill, make the page look nice and everything. I feel like it's much harder to do landscapes nicely than to do just simple character designs, maybe just because I'm out of practice. Cutting up the page into 3 different sections made it a lot more manageable for me and also gave me the opportunity to stress less, especially for this video, because I honestly wasn't sure that I was going to be able to make anything of substance whatsoever. Didn't learn from my last video though, where I said I wouldn't do more than 1 character design at a time, and I thought, oh well, this is landscape, so that's totally different. It's going to take me way less time to do each piece. It'll be more like a sketch. Nope, each piece took like 45 minutes. The last one took an hour. That math is all wrong because I actually only spent 2 hours on this entire thing, but still it was longer than I wanted it to be. I only wanted to spend like maybe an hour doing this whole video, but you know, maybe I'll learn next time. I also recorded a timer on screen just in case anyone wanted to know how long this actually took. I find it's always helpful to see how long other people take to do art. Sometimes when it's sped up too much, you can't really tell, so I think I'm going to keep the timer in for the rest of these videos. Let me know if they're really helpful for you. This first illustration here, I think is honestly my best one out of the 3. I do like the last one as well, but this first one's color like really shone through. I went with a very mountainous theme for this first one because, you know, gargoyles, rocks, mountains. I wanted it to be very gothic, but with these primary colors, it made it a little bit more difficult to get that dark feeling. So I stopped worrying about trying to get the actual color that I wanted and thought a little bit more about the values of the color. Like yellow is a light color, so whenever I wanted something that was going to be light, I put yellow there. Blue was the darkest color, so that's the color I put where I wanted things to be darker, like the mountains. This was actually a really good exercise in values and color value. I don't know anything about color theory because I didn't go to that kind of art school, but my shading definitely improved after this, especially going through from the very first gargoyle where I was kind of just winging it, no pun intended. But yeah, this whole project was actually a really good experiment for colors and color mixing because the yellow and the blue, though that actually makes green, it didn't really make green when I mixed them together, but it did kind of get this weird comic book effect. You know, like when they print comic books with the dots and then the dots would all like make different colors, but it's only because it's tricking your eye to think that those 2 colors are that way. Yeah, that's what you had to think like to do this crayon thing. Anyways, to finish off this first piece, I added a gargoyle in the background. I was kind of thinking these gargoyles were like flying towards the mountain. It kind of just looks like an eagle, like a firebird of some kind, especially because I was given literally every color but but gray. I had a hard time trying to get that darker tone. Even with the blue, it didn't really translate the way I was hoping it to. But you know, I think it still looks really good, and I definitely think this first one, even though it was the first one, I still think is one of the better ones out of the three. Something I did that I don't think I've ever really tried to do when playing with crayons before is scraping away the wax that would build up on top of the paper and then adding more color on top of that. It did get very messy, and I am still finding little bits of crayon everywhere a week later. But I did that throughout all three pieces because I found that if you scraped away the wax, there was still paper that hadn't been touched by the wax. So you had to scrape it away and then fill in more color and then scrape again and then fill in more color to get something that was really saturated. I feel like there was more potential out of that idea, that technique of like scraping away the wax and adding more, but I didn't really maximize that for this piece. I just scraped all the wax away for the final. It did, however, get this really cool kind of old photo look. I did have some issues, however, trying to figure out like what was the best tool to scrape the wax away, because I was using my nail and then I was like, oh, that's kind of gross. So I used this ruler, but then the ruler was making scratches in the actual art piece. So I was like, it's not the best thing. I ended up just going straight back to my nail because my nails were acrylic. You probably don't want to do this with regular nails, that might hurt, but my nails were really stiff because they were acrylic, so I could really easily scrape them away. It would just get built up really quickly. In retrospect, I think the flat side of a butter knife would have been really good. Anyways, moving on to the next piece. This one was definitely a flop because I had a really good idea for what I wanted to do, and maybe I'll do this idea in something like later and when I'm not doing this 4-color crayon restaurant crayon challenge. But I wanted to do something that was completely different from the mountains, since I didn't really know what to do other than a mountain landscape, and I did that for the first one, so I wanted to do something different. And what's the opposite of a mountainscape? It's a grassland or a prairie. I also just wanted to see how well I could make green out of the yellow and blue colors, because I noticed they were doing pretty well in the first image, so I really wanted to see how far we could go with that. And then to incorporate our theme back into this piece, I wanted to have these like gargoyle shaped rocks on the ground, and then they were looking up to the sky, and there was like a gargoyle in the sky made of clouds. And I think that simply just didn't work because I didn't have gray. I think this piece would have definitely turned out a lot better if I had another color, because I didn't want to color the rocks blue because the sky was going to be blue. So then I was like, well, now I'm going to color it yellow and orange, but then that's not the color of rocks. So they just really didn't look like rocks, and I ended up coloring all the way right over them. And looking at it again today, you can barely see the gargoyle in the sky. I think if you didn't watch me draw it, you would have no idea where the gargoyle is, and it really doesn't look like a gargoyle. It looks like a bird. Actually, it just looks like cloud. But I still learned quite a bit from this piece because everything up until this point has all been in preparation for the final piece. I was trying to determine whether a blue or a red sky would be better. The first piece I obviously went with red, and that was really fun because then I could actually make like this setting sun, and I didn't even intend for that to be what it was going to look like. I was just going based off of the values, and then the values made it like this golden hour setting sun, which is really cool. In the second one, I wanted it to be more monochromatic. I was thinking of not even using all 4 colors for this one, but I didn't. And halfway through, I decided I also wanted this setting sun atmosphere in the background of the second one, but that didn't make any sense because the sky was blue, and I wanted the transition from yellow to blue, which is green, and green is the grass. And so obviously it was a complete disaster. Everything's kind of just melding together and there's no real color definition. The second one's just a bit murky all over, and so good thing I did it then though before I did the last one, because yeah, that would have really hurt me in the end if I did not make those mistakes. And finally, we could move on to the very last piece, which I think I kind of cheated on because I did just draw a gargoyle on a building. But to be fair, I did do 2 other landscape pieces, or attempted to, so I'm giving myself a bit of leeway with this one. I did end up going with a blue background this time, or a blue sky, I mean, but it worked because I separated the cool tones and the warm tones from each other. Since I chose the warm tones, the red, the orange, and the yellow as the colors for the gargoyle, it made it really easy for it to stand out against the blue background. I only used the blue in the sky and to do my final touch-ups on the gargoyle, and I think by this time I had really kind of figured out like how to make a piece look good based on just these 4 colors. It was also the time where one of these crayons finally broke, so I was waiting for this moment to happen. I actually didn't know like how they fused the 2 colors together, but I guess they just pour them together. It didn't make a huge difference that the blue and yellow crayon broke. I honestly at the beginning of this whole thing was thinking maybe I would use up the entire crayon for each. Didn't get that far, but the blue definitely looked like it had been through some things at the end of this process. And because in the last 2 pieces I was really thinking more about color, I wanted this one just be kind of more simple, just do the gargoyle, because I did want to focus on the shading this time. And I'm so glad I did, because that yellow like bottom light looks so cool shining upwards. I do think in the end you'll see that they're supposed to kind of be like cathedrals or something, like buildings in the background. I colored them yellow because I didn't really know what other color to use. If I did orange, it would blend too much with the building that the gargoyle is standing on, and so I used yellow, but I think that was kind of a bad idea. I thought if I I thought if I colored over in blue again, it would get too green and wouldn't look right. That's my only qualm with this piece. I just have no idea what's going on with the ominous yellow spiky light at the bottom. Another color combo that I really enjoyed with these 2 colors was the red and the blue to make purple, and it doesn't really look like purple, but it looks like this really cool mixture of red and blue that made it really dark. It's kind of hard to see over video and not in person, but I really liked it a lot. That's also why I wanted this sky to be blue, so I could mess with that coloration of the red and the blue in the sky. A lot of my reference images that I had on Pinterest, which by the way, that board is available for use if you want to see any of my Draw With Me references. There's a link in the description below for that Pinterest board, but a lot of the references that I was seeing were very like Gotham style, Dark Knight, Batman, gargoyle references. That was more so the vibe I was going for in this piece as opposed to the other 2, which are definitely, I was really trying not to do one of those pieces, but I couldn't help myself. It was just too cool. At this end bit here is really where you start to see me scraping off colors and layering them on again. I don't have much more else to say about this piece other than it was just a lot of fun to do, and I'm really glad I actually went and did it. I'd been staring at these crayons for so long and I was just like waiting for the opportunity to film this video, but I was so nervous at the beginning, especially because it's like they're crayons and I never use crayons, and so I was really thinking this whole thing was just going to be a flop and I wouldn't be able to make anything at all. This video is only the second of this Draw With Me series, so if you have any suggestions for how to improve the series, please let me know in the comments. I read every single one. My main goal for this series is to harbor a space online where we can all draw together and have fun. I do eventually want to showcase everyone's art as well, so if you did participate in today's drawing, you can use the DRAWITHFIRO hashtag on Instagram, or you can email it to my email, which I'll link below along with my website. I don't think I've talked yet about my website that I have on this channel, but I definitely got to do a tour of it sometime because I built the whole thing from scratch on NeoCities and it was so much fun. It's not totally complete yet, but I did find a way to connect my old website, which had my shop on it, with my NeoCities website in a seamless way that you can kind of flip-flop between the 2 and not get lost. Once my website is a little bit more complete, then I'm definitely going to do a tour and show how I did it because it was so much fun, and I don't have any coding background whatsoever, and it was honestly not that difficult. I don't know why I waited so long to start because I really did not think I was going to be able to make a website, and then I was like, yeah, you know what, I just want to start this one day, and I did, and then it was like it took a while to like get the hang of it, but it was really not that bad. I love logic puzzles though, and I think building a website is literally just one giant logic puzzle. I mean, it is literally coding, so, you know. Well, that's all I got for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and, you know, maybe try out some crayons once in a while. They're really fun. Throughout the series, I'm going to be trying a lot of different mediums out, so let me know what one I should try next. If you like the art, I do have an Instagram account. I haven't been updating it as much as I probably should be, but all the good things I do, I upload to YouTube anyways, so if you want to see more art, just follow me here. As always, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you later, cowboy.